The Lord's Day is my favorite day of the week, even though it's the day of the week that in many ways I work hardest and I'm most exhausted. It is simultaneously for me a day of rest and gladness and refreshment. And partly that's because I'm worshiping along with the gathered saints, and partly that's because I'm sitting under the word of my fellow pastors as well as bringing that word. And it's partly because I believe that God has appointed the Lord's Day to be a foretaste of the rest we will enjoy in glory to come. And so whenever I am doing works of necessity, the work of the gospel, or works of mercy, caring for those who are in need on the Lord's Day, even when I'm in the midst of doing those works of necessity and mercy, I find a tremendous refreshment on the Lord's Day, knowing that on that day I have a foretaste of the communion and the rest and the fellowship that I'm going to enjoy in glory forever. I think that pastors need to take care to make sure that they themselves are rejoicing in the Lord's Day and feeding on the benefits of the means of grace on the Lord's Day, even as they are giving of themselves for their congregation to do so. Pastors need to see themselves as worshipers along with the congregation as the congregation gathers on the Lord's Day. Pastors need to seek out time for rest. There may be a brief time of rest in the afternoon. If you have duties in the morning and the evening on the Lord's Day, you want to have appropriate time for rest on the Lord's Day. The tiredness that I experience on a Sunday evening is different from the tiredness that I experience any other day of the week. It's the best tiredness that I experience. I'm absolutely wrung out and exhausted. I've given all that I am and have at the end of that day, but I love sitting in the quiet in my home in a chair at 10 or 10:30 or 11 o'clock on Sunday evening and just working back over what's happened in the day, working back over the scriptures that were read, the prayers that were prayed, the songs that were sung, the message that was brought. I have a minister of teaching, and so typically, if I'm preaching on Sunday mornings, I get to hear him preach on Sunday evening. So I'm in there with the congregation just feasting on the Word. I recognize not all pastors have that. A lot of pastors are the solo pastor in their congregation, and they rarely get the opportunity to sit under the regular ministry of another preacher. If that is the case, then I would really, really encourage them, and probably on the Lord's Day, and probably on the Lord's Day evening, to listen to a pastor, sit under John Piper, sit under Sinclair Ferguson, sit under some pastor that will feed your soul. You know, that's the glory of the iPod and of the MP3 and of the various downloading techniques that we have today. You can listen to these great pastors and just feed your own soul on that Lord's Day. But I would encourage pastors that we live in a 24/7 world. And if there is never a time where there has to be a cessation from the temporal and an attention to the eternal, then we will live on a sort of a continuous gerbil mill running all the time. And the Lord's Day gives us the opportunity for that Sabbath rest. In the Old Covenant, it was experienced by God's people on the seventh day, but I believe in the New Covenant there is a day corresponding to that day which is designed for the gathering of the saints, for the worship of God, and for deeds of mercy and necessity, and that day is meant to be an anticipation of the blessing and the rest to come. And so, for me, the Lord's Day provides that. Even though I take time off later or the next day on Monday, I take time off to prepare myself and recompose myself. I want the Lord's Day itself to be a day of refreshment, even though it's a day of giving and of expending myself in a day of work.